Welcome again, everyone, to the webinar on careers in social media marketing, brought to you by Pearl Live. Everything about social media is exciting, and so are careers in the sector. We are very happy to see such enthusiastic participation from all of you to learn more about this topic. Before I introduce the speaker, a couple of guidelines for the webinar. All of you will be in listen-only mode. The format will be we'll have our speaker discuss the career opportunities in this sector for 30 minutes, followed by a question and answer session. Please feel free to ask any question about the sector, about careers, about what it takes to start your entry level position in this sector, anything that comes to your mind about social media marketing. Please feel free to ask our speaker about the doubt in your mind. And you can do so by typing your question in a little box that appears on the right hand side in your control panel called questions. I will take those questions and ask them to our speaker on your behalf. Our speaker for today is Mr. Puneet Pahuja, who is the founder and CEO of Webenza, which is a top level digital marketing firm that's based in Bangalore. They have a large clientele that's based both in India and around the world. Puneet is a veteran in this space. He has over 20 years of experience. And before he got into the social media and digital marketing sector, he was the country head for a top US bank in India. On the education side, Puneet has an MBA from the US as well as an MS in electrical engineering, both from Cleveland and in India from Gujarat. So, Puneet, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. Good evening, folks. It's good to be here. I always take on such opportunities where I'm able to share some of my knowledge and some of my experience in this space, and hopefully it can affect some lives there. But to kind of keep it short, because we have only about 30 minutes for me to talk, and I'd love to spend more time listening to your questions and answering some of those. But the space of social media is kind of all pervasive these days. If you haven't been part of it, then you're really missing out a lot of stuff. For example, this slide shows you three of these viral campaigns that you may have seen or may have even participated in some. The first one here is the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. I personally participated in it, and I also actually donated towards the cause. There's which actually, and these are really viral campaigns that you may have seen, and the numbers that they generated were huge. So the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge actually ended up with 1.2 million videos that were shared on Facebook and around 2.2 million mentions of the challenge on Twitter. In less than 3 months, and virality that you saw within that campaign. Apart from that, you saw the other one, which was the Oscar selfie by Ellen DeGeneres. This is another one which went viral at the Oscars this year. This one alone was forwarded over 2 million times. So what this kind of gives you an idea of is how virality is in some ways you cannot really control it, but the people on social media are hungry for stuff like that. They're willing to share. If they like something, they're open about it, and they're willing to give their opinions and comments. The first one was the ALS Ice Bucket, which actually created a lot of awareness about ALS. No one knew what ALS was, and people utilized this platform to share, create awareness about it, and it generated a lot of money for them. The last one is the Nescafe campaign, which you may have seen, which again creates awareness about the stuttering or the stammering problem that people have, and kind of making it human and making it acceptable. This alone generated about 5 million views on YouTube. It's a fantastic video that you must watch. And I think what it does is it kind of creates an emotional connect. Um, and if you move on to the next slide, uh, let's talk about what is social media marketing. Social media marketing is not just a matter of putting stuff on Facebook or Twitter, as a lot of people feel that it is, but there's a lot more that goes into it. It's actually a process through which you can garner traffic, and the traffic can be actually utilized to do various things on either your social media channels or even traffic that can be generated to be taken to your website. So every location or digital asset, as we call it, that organizations have, one of which is a website, you have a blog, or you have all your social channels, have value-added content that is being created and which is being presented to the audiences. So the idea of using social media is to market that content and to be able to create interactions with the audiences. So attract attention and encourage readers to share it. Now, social networks, especially, are assets that actually help you create that interaction. So the last bullet point there is to provide the means for brands to interact and engage. And the biggest difference between that I always say between traditional marketing and social media marketing is that on traditional you cannot talk back to the TV, you cannot talk back to the newspaper, whereas in social media the best part about it is you are actually talking and interacting and engaging with your audiences and your customers directly. It's a segment of one, as I call it. And some of the channels have been shown in the previous slide. If you talk about the sheer numbers, it's mind-boggling. YouTube and Facebook are clear winners in this space. If you look at the global numbers, YouTube already has 1 billion users. Facebook has 1.2 billion users. LinkedIn has 300 million users, 271 million on Twitter. Pinterest is 40 million, which is a very new channel. And look at the numbers there. But look at the numbers in India, which is really surprising how quickly India has actually adopted these social networks. YouTube is 55 million, LinkedIn has 26 million, and I think most of you who are listening are on LinkedIn. Facebook, I'm sure 100% of you are probably on Facebook as well. 100 million users in India alone are on Facebook. They say in 5 years there'll probably be 300 million users on Facebook just in India. Twitter has 33 million users. Pinterest has 5.5. So if you look at the numbers, most of the people that you want to interact with are on social media, and that's going to be your audience. If you look at the numbers in terms of age demographics in India, as you well, everyone knows that about 50 to 60% of the population of India is less than 35 years old, and most of them are going to be on social media sooner or later. If you look at some of the statistics on this slide, India has the world's third largest internet population of 74 million, and it's growing rapidly. As the prices of phones and the availability of internet increases, you'll see a lot more people on the internet. While other industries are struggling with that 10 to 12% growth, this space is actually booming. It's growing at a 30% growth rate. And if an industry like this is growing so fast, obviously that's going to generate jobs. And you look at the numbers in terms of jobs, there will be about 2.5 lakh jobs in this sector by the end of 2016. And honestly speaking, I'll tell you from personal experience that we ourselves are looking at doubling in size this year. So this is one company in one location in India. There are hundreds of such companies that are trying to grow really rapidly, and there's a lot of work out there. 75% internet users in India are under the age of 35. 81% of the Indian population uses mobile phones, and 10% are smartphones. Smartphones, let's talk about that a little. Smartphones used to be a lot more expensive, and every day you see a new company enter the market and sell you these smartphones for much lesser than they used to be just a year ago. Because the cost of smartphones dropping, there are a lot more people that are going to be using smartphones. And why are these smartphones effective? Because smartphones give you the ability to use social media, excuse me, and to do a lot of other things there. And as the prices drop, these smartphones are going to be available across the country in the rural locations as well. 26% of the Indians are accessing social media from their mobile device. I just talked about that. That number is really small. If you look at the numbers as they grow, you will see that number double or triple in size pretty soon. And obviously, social media is riding on top of the internet wave in India. And I always say that social media is a space, it's going to be like water. You cannot do without it. If you are a B2B company or a B2C company or any kind of an organization, including an NGO, you will have to get into that space. There is just no way out. If you're sitting in a silo or in a cocoon or in a cave thinking that you're just going to do traditional marketing and get away with it, ain't happening. So believe me, this is a space where there's a lot of opportunities out there. Just as of yesterday, we saw there were 28,258 social media marketing jobs only on Naukri. And this is just looking at one set of jobs that's called social media marketing. As we go along this presentation, I'll tell you all the different opportunities and careers that are out there in this space, which are related to what we're talking about. And we talk about opportunities in metros, but the tier 2 cities are also going to have a lot more opportunities as you grow. Let's talk about what are companies looking for. And I put some thought into this as I put this slide together. And if you think about it, each and every area within the organization is needed as you grow. The more clients you have, each of the clients that you have would need design capabilities or an in-house organization. I talk about clients because I represent an agency, but an in-house organization also. When you talk about putting together a social media team or a digital marketing team, um, all the areas that I'm talking about have to be represented within that team. In some cases, they do stuff in-house. In other cases, they do it through agencies. But if you talk about design is a very important part of how you portray your content, how you communicate, what do you put on your websites, how do you actually put posts on Facebook. Every single post that you put out there needs to have a creative with it. Uh, any communication you carry out these days has to be visual in nature. So design plays a huge part um, in this entire space. If you talk about copywriting and content development, that's an area that needs a lot of focus because content will always be king. And believe me, that there's a stark difference between copywriting and content writing, and we can talk about that as we go further down this presentation. So social media strategy is a very important part that it plays as well, because one size will never fit all. If you talk about strategies that you want to put together for different organizations, each organization has different objectives. Each organization has different audiences. Each organization has uh, a different communication style, but the tonality may be different. So there's a lot of variations for each and every organization, even though it's in the same space. But in general, you can have some ideas that a B2B organization will have a certain set of channels that are more effective versus a B2C play. So the social media strategy kind of plays a very important role in this whole process. Community management is kind of part of social media because as you handle different communities or create different communities for organizations online, you need to manage that, you need to moderate it, you need to respond, you need to engage. Um, the next one is search engine optimization, and a lot of you may have heard about SEO. SEO plays a very important role in creating traffic on your website. There's organic traffic and there's paid traffic. So SEO plays a huge role in increasing your organic traffic. And I'll talk about that a little more going forward. Search engine marketing. Um, PPC. PPC is pay per click. And search engine marketing actually these days encompasses all the paid advertising online. For example, when you go to Google and you search for, say, cakes, you will find all these ads on the side of which are kind of the stamp ads, or if you see the promotional material that shows up on Google, that's all being done by organizations who are running these PPC campaigns, uh, so that they can advertise on Google or on Bing or on third-party sites. Or if you go to a certain site, you'll suddenly notice that I saw an ad on this site, and then once I moved on to a different site altogether, you saw the same ad there, and then you saw it again, and then you saw it again, um, and then you notice that this ad is following me. So that's a technique that is also used as part of search engine marketing, which is called remarketing. Um, so there's different aspects to this PPC, the paid model of advertising, which come into play, and we'll talk about that a little more. I can answer some questions as well if you have those. One of the Actually, as part of the PPC, you can also include um, video marketing. So you try to promote a video and make it go viral. You can also include mobile marketing because you can talk about the mobile apps that people are promoting and you need to download those apps. You need to promote those mobile apps for downloads. You can actually put ads when you are playing a game. So that's all part of mobile marketing. Or during videos, you see those ads that are placed at the beginning of the video through the video. Social media listening and analytics. This is a newer trend in this space, and this is a very, very powerful uh, portion of this entire space, if you want to call it that. This is to listen to conversations. This is about using a platform to listen to conversations that are happening online, whether they're happening on social media or they're happening on blogs or forums or any of these public websites across the globe. There are platforms out there that can be used to track conversations based on the keywords that you want to track. For example, if you're Airtel, And there's a lot of conversations about Airtel out there. If you have a problem, you're going to say something if no one answers it, you'll probably go to some consumer forum. You'll go to various websites and kind of complain about it. So organizations these days are deploying these conversations that kind of ORM strategy, which is an online reputation management strategy. So they capture these conversations across their region that they're targeting, and they can gain analytics out of it, which will tell them how many of these conversations were positive, how many were negative, how many were neutral, what gender was talking about it more, what was the age demographic of the people talking about it, what was the location where the conversations were happening the most. And there's a lot of other analysis or analytics that you can gain out of this kind of data. And that has become a very important part of the strategy that a lot of the organizations are deploying these days. Market research has been an age-old traditional way of doing research, but that is still valid these days. Uh, in our case, what that does, we do this kind of research online. So we do competitive analysis, we do industry benchmarking, so we do kind of predictive analysis. So that's the kind of stuff that's being done in the market research space as well. And the last one is technology. Technology is always an enabler, will always be an enabler, even more than it was yesterday, today, because what happens is technology is being used to create all of the interactivity that we talk about. For example, your website. If you go to a website and you don't see anything really out of the ordinary, you'll go there once and probably bounce out of there in no time. But if you were to see that there's something interactive there, maybe a calculator or maybe something that's involving you with your business model, and you can give in some inputs and get some value-added report out of it, or if there's a game that you can play which is in line with what your industry is all about, or if there's some content that you can read, maybe an ebook or a flip book or a video or an animated graphic or something like that. All of that uh, involves technology. Okay, and I call it creative technology because we utilize technology to enable marketing. And these days, to enable marketing, your technology needs to be creative. So there are so many new trends in that space that are coming in as well, and we'll talk about that a little more as we go. But technology always has played a very important role and will continue to play an important role in this space. And when you talk about um, the base level technology we talk about is website development, and that's always going to be an important part of the digital space. Now there's some quotes here about why choose a career in social media marketing, and you can read these. Important to think of every customer. That's extremely important to understand because these days one person saying something negative about can cause such a lot of disruption that it almost becomes the right way. To hello,
Yes, Puneet, please go ahead. We can hear you. Hello? Looks like Puneet is facing some issue logging in. While he tries to log back in, we'll quickly talk about the social media marketing course that's being offered by Pearl Life and how it can help you, either as a fresher or somebody who's already been in the sector, get started in the social media marketing space. The social media marketing course is a 6-month, 100% online course and it is designed both for practitioners as well as freshers in this space. Now, this course is divided into 5 modules, which are spread over 24 weeks or 6 months. The complete content is asynchronous, which means there is no restriction of a time or day for you to log in and complete the lectures. There are weekly deadlines to help maintain discipline and structure. However, within the week, you are free to decide when you want to study the materials and when you want to complete the projects. Every week, we expect learners to spend anywhere between 5 to 7 hours on a weekly basis to be able to keep pace with the weekly deadlines. The program is completely mentor led. Every student or every learner, as we call them, will be assigned a mentor who would be somebody from the industry. People like Puneet and other practitioners who have vast amount of experience and knowledge in the sector would be available to guide you and mentor you on the projects. So there'll be a fixed time that can be set up with each of these mentors. However, the course is not completely asynchronous where you're left on your own to find answers. There will be somebody every step of the way to guide and mentor you. The most important feature of the course is an e-portfolio that every learner will build by the end of the 6 months. Every week, there is a mini project that learners are expected to complete. Take screenshots of the activities that they have done and submit it for review and evaluation to the mentors. Now, these screenshots and these artifacts become a part of portfolio that can be showcased to employers, current or future, or even if you're looking to start off on your own as credentials to your potential clients on what you can do and achieve in social media marketing. Increasingly, employers are not happy by looking at qualifications and credentials and skill sets on resumes. And having a portfolio which demonstrates the skills that you've acquired always gives you an edge over the others that do not have such portfolios. The final feature of the program is a Pearl Connect program. All the learners in this course are considered students of Pearl Academy, and we've been in the education space for 20 years, running undergraduate, postgraduate, and diploma programs in some of the fast emerging sectors. So all students are existing and the alumni of Pearl Academy, and there would be a Pearl Connect program conducted towards the end of the course for 4 weeks, 4 days, I'm sorry, where the learners have an opportunity to come to any of the Pearl campuses in the country and participate in a series of networking events, lectures, project presentations, and finally a graduation ceremony. I think Puneet is back, so I'll go back to his slides and we can talk about some other features of the course. Puneet, over to you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so going back to the different careers or opportunities that you have in this space, one of the biggest ones is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship sounds really cool and sounds really exciting, and believe you me, it is extremely exciting. But it has its challenges and its pitfalls, um, and it's risky as well. But the opportunity in the entrepreneurship space is definitely out there in this field because the barriers to entry aren't that high. But there are challenges that you will face as you go through this because I can tell you with first-hand experience um, that there's a lot that goes into it. But the benefits and far outweigh the risks. So I would encourage any and all entrepreneurs, if you have ideas and if you have the drive and the risk-taking ability, go for it. It's fun. The next one is social media management. Now, when you talk about social media management, there's a lot of different pieces and parts to that space, like I was talking about earlier, and there are different roles that you can play within that organization, within that team, and that manages all the social media channels. So, like I said, the strategist plays a big role in this space because the strategist is the one who understands all the aspects of the social media channels. But not just that, strategist also has to understand the trends in this space. What are the channels being used for? How are they being utilized? What is the best way to utilize it for a certain particular organization? The strategies you put in place are not going to be just for a particular brand or in different kind of roles that you play. For example, if you're playing a role within my organization, which is an agency, every client is different. Every industry is different. So the strategist has to understand that industry. That person has to put on the clothes of that particular client to figure out what they're all about. So research is a big part of what you do. And when you talk about strategies, uh, there's an ongoing set of activities that you carry out for certain customers and clients and your organizations, but there is something that you call as campaigns. When you're running these campaigns, you've got to think about how you're going to have a kind of a spike in conversations where you can increase a lot of the engagement that you have with your particular audience space. So strategist plays a very important role. The analyst also plays an important role in terms of actually executing these campaigns. So the analyst gets into this space by understanding how to do these activities on these social channels, and then starts executing these kind of campaigns or these activities. The community manager is another person who, for example, in some cases, if you have an organization that has a set of channels like a Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Google Plus, that community manager has to create a thriving community, which is actually a set of people who are interested in the space that your organization is and the business that they're in, and continue the interaction, build interaction, create conversations, understand what they need, answer their questions, learn from their challenges. So the community manager is someone who actually controls the conversations within that particular community that's been built for that particular organization. Moving on to the next one, I talked about design a little bit, and design plays a huge part, and there's so many aspects to design as well. When you talk about designers, you have someone an art designer. What is an art designer? Art designer could be someone who can do caricatures, who can do character design, who can do cartoons, who can create different art forms, sketch forms. A graphic designer is someone who's similar to that, but actually he or she is a graphic artist who can create very nice posts that you create on Facebook or in other channels that you have. Create infographics, which are actually a graphical representation of certain processes that you have. A web designer is someone who actually is very good at designing web applications or websites. UI is a user interface designer, which is much more to do than not just websites, but other applications in terms of their user interfaces. A UX designer is one of the hottest commodities these days because it's a very sought after skill, which is a user experience designer. And these kind of individuals give you insights into whether your design is actually appropriate for the audiences. Is there a thought that has been put into place in terms of the heat maps as to where is a certain person, if that person comes to your site, where are they going to go first? Are they going to go to the top left-hand corner of the page or the bottom right-hand corner of the page? And is the product that you've designed, is that conducive for them to use? Are you going to go 4 clicks down or 3 clicks down or two? So creating that entire experience on the design that you have. UX is a very important play. Motion and animation design is another area of expertise which is hard to find. And these are specialized artists that create this kind of design. When you talk about design, you need even people to design mobile interfaces because mobile apps and tablet apps and games, all of them need certain design capabilities. So design is always plays a very important role in this space. Moving on to the next slide, content. Like I said when I was talking about it earlier, there are copywriters and there's content writers. You have long form content, which is blogs or websites or case studies or things like that, whereas a copywriter writes short form content, high impact short form content, which hits you in your face kind of content, which really grabs you. So one liner, two liners, the posts that you see out there on Twitter, you cannot go more than 140 characters. So copywriter plays a very, very important role in the space that we're in. Moving on to the next slide, content marketing. If you talk about content marketing, there's various forms of content that you create. I've just mentioned a couple. You have, and there's another aspect to digital marketing, which is email marketing. So when you talk about content marketing, creating content is one thing, but marketing that content is something else. So when you create a video, you need to promote the video. If you create a mobile app, you need to promote the mobile app. If you have an emailer you need to send out to your audience and you have a database, you have to do the email marketing. So there's platforms that you use for that. So this is an area where some people actually specialize in mobile marketing and video marketing and things like that. Moving on to the next one, SEO and SEM. If you were to build a website, and if you didn't do any search engine optimization to it, you would never be able to find that website. So if you were to search for anything about that particular website, sometimes even the name may not show up. So it's very important to carry out these sets of search engine optimization activities, which will impact the traffic on your website, and that's a skill that has been needed for a long time, and that actually is always an integral part of a digital agency. That role becomes a very important part of what you do because it leads to increasing organic traffic. And organic traffic means you're not paying for it. So the amount of money you spend on paid leads and paid traffic far outweighs the amount of traffic that you can get from an organic perspective. That's why SEO plays a very important role in the roles that you have are the analyst role, and then you have a manager role in the SEM space, which is search engine marketing, which is the ad space, online advertising space. There's particular roles for buyers and planners. Now, what is a buyer or a planner? When you're putting ads out there on, say, for example, Google, you've got to decide what kind of ads to place out there. Are you going to put a text ad? You're going to put an image ad? Where are you going to target these ads? What third-party sites are you going to put it on? How much budget are you going to apply to it? Uh, what is the audience you're going to target? What are the keywords you're going to use to target audiences? All of this is part of planning. And buying is someone who understands the organizations and the networks that serve those ads. So the buyer has to understand how much do you pay for these ads that you put on these networks. If you have a larger volume, that buyer's job is to get the best price to be able to put those ads out there. If there are third-party sites out there, the buyer's job is to what are the rates to be put out there, and what properties to buy. Where are you going to put these out there? So go to the next slide. I talked about this a little, social intelligence and analytics. This is um, also a very interesting space because what happens is there's different objectives that certain organizations have. For example, um, if you have a need to manage your reputation, and if you realize that based on the traffic that you're tracking, your number of mentions is about 500,000 mentions a month. If you have 5 lakh mentions showing up in a month, you need a pretty large team to be able to keep track of all those conversations and to be able to make sense out of it and to be able to interact or react or respond to those conversations. So what happens is there's a team of analysts who would be managing that, and there would be agents in that space as well. So this is like a large organization that would put people in place who would track, monitor, and in some cases just tag these, and then in other cases, the senior analyst would take it and think about responding to these conversations. The researcher is someone who's actually analyzing the data, the big data that they talk about, that you're tracking in these systems, is analyzed, and then you create reports out of it. Like I talked about industry benchmarking reports or competitive intelligence reports. So that's the kind of reporting that you can carry out. Brand audit reports, influencer analysis reports. So there's a whole lot of reports that can be created through the analytics that you gain out of these conversations. Moving on to the next one, I talked about creative technology, and in technology, it's basically a varied set of technical skills that are needed based on the organization that you're part of, or based on the need of the customer. For example, if someone needs to promote or create a mobile app, so the technology need is mobile, and mobile can be on various platforms. You can have mobile on Android, you can have iOS, which is your Apple, and BlackBerry used to be popular, but not anymore. And Symbian used to be popular, now it's Windows. So there's a lot of technical skills that you need to have that kind of skill to be able to build these these apps. Similarly, on the web space, you need people who can build apps or websites, and then on social media also, like for example, Facebook. Facebook has the capability of hosting apps as well. So there's the technical skill that's needed to be able to create Facebook apps. Similarly, there's other platforms. There's newer technologies that are coming into play that we're trying to dabble with. Is augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D interactive space. So these are all the creative technology spaces where there are opportunities as well. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of all the different uh, possibilities that I could put out there, because I put the kind of careers that I'm looking for, and also generically speaking, most agencies and most organizations would need people to play some of those roles.
Puneet, thank you very much for that extremely informative and extensive talk about the various career opportunities in this sector. Most of us very commonly believe that social media begins and ends with a Facebook, a Twitter, or a LinkedIn, and a couple of other social media sites that are pretty popular. But it's very interesting to note that there are these different opportunities that exist for people with different backgrounds and interests, whether they are creatively inclined, whether they're more inclined towards data and numbers, or they're generally inclined about talking and reaching out to people via the brands and the marketing channels. Before we take questions from the participants, there are actually quite a few questions that have come in. We'll spend the next 1 to 2 minutes sharing more information about the social media marketing course that's being launched by Pearl Life. So we spoke about the key features of the program. The courseware partners for the program are Pearl Academy, which is an education institution uh, that's been in the creative arts and business education space for the last 20 years. The Internet and Mobile Association of India, which is the equivalent of a NASCOM for all the software and BPO companies, they have endorsed this program and they stand behind the program. And SmartOn, which is an online education company, is providing both the courseware as well as technology for this program. The syllabus is divided into 5 modules, which start right from introducing the learners to social media marketing, the key concepts, the key terminologies, and the best practices in this area. The next module will focus on how do you go about building a social media strategy. Puneet spoke very extensively about how it is important to first strategize what should be the marketing approach on the various social media channels before actually executing it. So that's the next module. The third module focuses on how do you acquire and engage users through different channels. The fourth is on measuring and analyzing effectiveness. Again, going back to Puneet's discussion about the various opportunities that exist in analytics and monitoring, listening, those will be the topics that will be covered here. And finally, social media and digital marketing are kind of intertwined. So the last module will also talk about some key areas of digital marketing, such as mobile marketing, such as email marketing, content marketing, which will be covered in the final module. Some projects that the learners will complete as a part of the course, it will include developing a content management plan and building a content management calendar. So these are all projects that are very similar to what anybody would do once they start a job in the social media sector, whether it is with an agency, whether it's with a startup, or with the large MNCs. These are all the projects which are very similar to the job tasks that a young professional can expect. Similarly, identifying and implementing strategies to build a social media community, setting up and running a Google AdWords campaign, identifying SEO friendly keywords for a website. So, this is a sample of the projects that learners can complete. We'll now move on to the questions. There have been quite a few, so I'll take one by one. Gaurav has a question for you, Puneet. He says most of the budding entrepreneurs are trying to crack zero budget marketing. What are your tips for brands without any budget for social media?
You know what? Actually, that's a good question. I get that a lot. First thing I tell people, there is no free lunch. Uh, and what you pay for is what you get. Um, but on the flip side, and I understand the challenges that entrepreneurs have, and I understand the challenges that startups have. They just don't have um, the bandwidth in terms of money to spend on that. So what I personally do is spend some time educating them, and if they can do it themselves, I tend to help them along so that they can do it. Um, if they cannot and they don't have the bandwidth and they really need help, what I do is I ask them their budget and I devise a strategy which is the optimized way of spending their money. Because you cannot do it all. So if you're talking to an expert, the expert will help you figure out where should you spend your money initially, because it's a crawl, walk, run approach that you have to take. and you need to figure out where do you get the best bang for your buck. So that's all I would say, and I've had many conversations with people about that. There is no one size fits all solution. It depends on the business that you're in. But the conversation needs to be had to understand what business it is, and then based on that, if I can, there are some students who do startups, and what I tell them, spend an hour with me. I'll tell you what you need to do. Try and do it yourself first. If not, then we can talk about
Thanks, Puneet. The next question is from Nilanchana, who wants to know how easy is it to switch to a social media career from a non-social media background? Hello?
That's if you have. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Puneet. Please go
Can
ahead.
you hear me?
Yes, Puneet, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of switching careers, it is definitely possible. It is definitely possible. But switching any career in my mind is possible. But the bottom line is the onus is on you. How much preparation you put in. What is the effort you put in to get involved? What is the effort you put in to understand what space you're in? What is the difference between what you were doing before? How do you apply what you learned in your previous experience through your previous experiences to the new ones that you have? One tip I'll give you is to not to boil the ocean. Understand the space that you want to get into and figure out an area that you would like to learn about. Learn that, start work, try to learn everything. I mean, if I were to hire you, I would rather look at you as someone who can do one thing really well rather than try to do five things not really good at all. I think that's what I would say would be my advice to you. That if you want to pick it up, pick out one of the areas that interests you. Because once you have something that interests you, you will love doing it and you will enjoy learning and you will put the maximum effort in that space. And like I said, there's so many different areas that you can focus on. Look at your own skill, figure out what you can do best, and go after it.
Great. Thanks, Puneet. The next question is from Manish. He says he's a marketing manager with a consumer products company and he has about 5 years of experience. And digital marketing for him today is a necessary skill and not optional anymore. But is it too late for me to get started in this sector?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You need to get into it today. Get yourself in the program, figure out what this space is all about, understand it better. Like we're talking about this particular course. I mean, you should. One of the best ways to get into an organized program, which gives you a great idea of what this whole space is all about, and especially you coming from the traditional marketing space, will not be that hard for you to figure it out. A lot of the concepts that you use in the traditional marketing space do apply. And knowing the marketing space will help you a lot. It's just about applying or learning these new tactics and techniques and then using a strategic mindset to develop those strategies in terms of utilizing these tools and channels that are out there. Um, Never let anyone say that you will not be able to do something in this space, especially you coming from that background that you have.
Thanks, Puneet. We have a question here from Rajesh, who wants to know what is the sustainability level of such skill sets? Will will social media marketing die off in the next 10 years?
That's an interesting question, and I've been asked that before as well. In fact, there's discussion that we have with our clients about that as well. That is this just a fad? But right now, if you look at it, things do change. Honestly, if you don't use what's out there, and if you think that it's going to die and you're not going to do anything about it, then guess who's the loser, right? The person who is not using it is the loser. And the bottom line is, the trends that you're looking at, are only going upwards. There are certain social channels that have dropped off, like Orkut. There is no way out of it. If there are a billion people on a particular channel, are you really going to sit out there and second guess it, saying that, you know what, maybe this is going to die today? You're doing it at your own risk. The bottom line is, this generation and this world now is evolutionary. Things will change. You have to learn to adapt. And that's the way it's going to be. Look at the mobile space. Every day there's new apps coming out. Every day some of these paradigms are changing. There's shifts all over the place. The bottom line is you have to be adaptable and you have to learn and keep learning. It used to be before that you had to learn, but now it is 10 times that. You have to keep up with this, especially as a professional. And in the marketing space, you have to, maybe I should just not do it. You just don't have a choice. In my opinion, at least for the foreseeable future, social and mobile is here to stay.
Thanks, Puneet. Gaurav
Go
has
ahead.
another question. He says, how do brands reach out to rural markets using digital?
Yeah, that's a good question. It has been a challenge. But if you know, smartphones are growing, but normal mobile phones are still there. And they have quite a reach. So what people are doing, they're using various innovative techniques to get to these people in the rural areas. SMS marketing still works. So people use SMS to communicate in various ways. Missed call marketing still works. You're able to get to these people through that particular network that you have. So digital in that in that way is there's a slightly different approach when you get to these people. So there's a very large brand that's done something very interesting. They've actually set up something like a radio channel. Okay, and they send out these SMSs to these people where they can actually send a missed call back, and if they send a missed call back, they can listen to the radio, okay, through their mobile phone. It doesn't have to be a smartphone, and they can listen to these news bits and certain channels. And so if they want to subscribe to a news channel, they can do that. If they want to listen to music, they can do that through this. And that's a very interesting approach that they've taken. And through that, they advertise. So there's a great example of a combination of digital along with TV or radio advertising that they're doing as well. So that market also is evolving because as this internet spreads and as the world gets more connected, the newer ways of marketing to them are going to come around, but they still rely on SMS.
That's,
Go ahead.
yeah. So we have a very interesting question here from Pooja. She says she is a commerce graduate and she's a Facebook junkie. She spends quite a lot of time on Facebook every day. And social media marketing, she feels, is the best career for her. But given her obsession with Facebook, the question she has is, will it be an asset or will it not be an asset for a company?
That's actually for me that's a big asset because I always ask that. If you want to make it big in this field and if you have a passion for it, then you better be doing it yourself. If you're doing it yourself, you know the ins and outs of these channels. You know how people use it. Facebook is extremely popular. There's the other channels as well. So for me, it's very big careers in this space. Need to know the ins and outs of these channels. And one of the things is, yes, you will use it for yourselves and you will do it with your friends and stuff like that. But while you're studying, I would suggest have the mindset that time is money. Spend some time, do odd jobs, do your internships, participate, do live projects, work on this while you're studying, or or take on these projects on the side because that will help you tremendously. And I really look for people who show that kind of an initiative in to learn it themselves and then to apply it in some way, shape, or form, even if they're not getting paid, just to do it by yourself. Maybe take an NGO and work with them. That's how you learn to utilize these skills and practice these skills. And I think that it's a big asset if you're doing these things yourself and you're really active on those channels.
So, Pooja, I think the best place for you to get a job is with Puneet, because if you are a Facebook junkie, then he can definitely use your skills. We'll take a
Yes, you
couple
can
of
reach out to
last,
me. Go ahead.
yeah, we'll take a couple of last few questions. I have Gaurav here who says, how is Power Editor better than normal Facebook posting?
Bunch of these tools out there that you can use, and in a lot of cases we have our own tool that we use to do limitation tweets at the same schedule your posts and stuff like that on those tools. and gives you the opportunity to do it. And I think if you have a lot of channels that you're managing, and if you need to keep those in sync, and you have to post those at certain times, and you have that kind of a channel strategy in place, you have to use a tool. Okay. But otherwise, if you have a smaller team and you have to kind of interact on a personal level, then you need to do it yourself. But there are certain advantages of doing it through Power Editor and other tools as well, like I said, in terms of scheduling and all of that stuff that you can do with that. But I don't see that unless there's a limitation in terms of when you're putting it out there and it doesn't let you put your own brand on it. There's some things that there are some limitations that you have with some of these tools, which kind of hamper the way you're doing it. And then you need to manage access to them for your team to be doing certain things and what have you. Then it becomes a challenge. But otherwise, I would suggest in large organizations and in activities that in campaigns or engagements that require a lot of activities, we do encourage using tools.
Great. So we have a question here from Varsha, and she says she wants to start her own social media marketing agency, but how does she go about getting her first client?
That's a good question. That's a good question. A lot of people have done that, and a lot of people will get their first client. A lot of people will get their second client. Um, what happens is it becomes a challenge as you grow. First of all, credibility in the market is one of the most important things. Trust is one of the other most important things, and earning the trust of your clients and gradually growing through that trust. It's it's probably one of the biggest ways to start doing work with bigger clients. A smaller client, I think what you can do is the first thing to do is to reach out to your network. Your network is probably the most important asset that you can have. Because the first time you're doing it, no one else is going to come to you and pay you to do stuff for them because knowing that you might fail and you've never done it before. The only way to do it is to do it with someone that you know and who will trust you and give you the opportunity. The other thing that you can do is obviously initially you're not going to be able to charge market rate, so you'll have to do it for free in some cases. Take on those opportunities, take on those challenges. Like I said, if you work with an NGO, you've done some work with certain organizations, build your credibility through the work that you've done. Your portfolio has to showcase the different types of organization that you work with, and different types of channels that you've worked on, different types of campaigns you've done. What are the KPIs that you've achieved? If you're able to highlight some of that, then there will be someone who will give you an opportunity and say, hey, why don't you do this for me? And let's see how that goes.
Thanks, Puneet. We'll take our final
The
question here.
other approach these days that people have started taking is
We'll take a final question here. So this is from Asha, and she wants to know how do we identify the right audience for our marketing
it's kind
efforts?
of an hello.
Hello, Puneet?
Like I said, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hello. Yeah, no, what I was saying, like I said earlier, it's a conversation that you need to have based on your strategy, based on the objective that the client or the customer or your organization has. Every business is different, and it's very. Are you trying to sell? Are you trying to showcase your thought leadership? Are you trying to manage your reputation? There are various objectives that will guide you in terms of the audience that you want to target. I always say that yes, your targeting has to be razor sharp, and you need to be able to target exactly who this communication has to go to. For example, if it's a CXO level audience, then you need to target the CXOs in that space that you want to target. But always remember that there's a circle around that target audience which is considered to be the influencers, because it's the person who is reporting to that CXO who will influence the CSO on a certain decision or what have you, right? So it's important to figure out the circles of influence that the target audience that you are going after has, and that's how you build your communication to make sure that you have a razor sharp communication for the specific target audience, but you also have a slightly different communication for the influencers in that space. It depends on the kind of industry you're in. B2C is a very different space. So if you have a younger audience, then obviously you have to have or a different kind of a communication plan for the younger audience in the B2C space. So it varies, but it has to be keeping that in mind that you have one set of audiences, but you need to figure out the next circle around it, or who the influencers are in that space who you can target as well.
Thank you, Puneet. So that was our last question. Although there are quite a few questions that are coming in, but in the interest of time, we will conclude the webinar. Puneet, on behalf of Pearl Live, thank you very much for your time and your insights on careers in this sector. I'm sure the participants are walking away much wiser and much more knowledgeable about what they can expect if they were to choose starting or making a career in social media marketing. To all our participants, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your enthusiastic participation. Unfortunately, we couldn't answer a couple of questions, but feel free to shoot us an email at info@pearllife.com if you want to talk to us about any specific topic in social media marketing or otherwise. We are there to answer and help you. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.